It was roughly 6 a.m. when I swung open the door to let a breeze sweep through the house. I wasn't fully awake yet, just stumbling outside in my flannel shirt and boots, yawning, my mind drifting to thoughts of coffee. Then I stopped dead in my tracks. There she stood, a full-grown bear, not lurking in the forest, not caught on my trail cam, but right there on my blasted porch, not 10 feet away. She didn't budge, didn't bellow, didn't lunge, just stood there, trembling, her breaths coming hard and heavy. Her fur was tangled, damp in spots, and her eyes, Lord, her eyes were streaming like a busted pipe. I'd never witnessed an animal weep like that. I mean truly weep. Then I spotted it, a cub in her jaws, its limp legs hanging like threads, head lolled to one side, motionless. I wanted to slam the door shut, to grab the rusty rifle leaning by the kitchen wall, but I didn't. Something in her pinned me in place. This wasn't aggression. This was a mother teetering on the brink of something I couldn't even put a name to. My pulse kicked into overdrive. I edged back slowly. She mirrored me. One step, two. Then, with care, she laid the cub down gently on the wooden porch planks, retreated a few feet, and sat, her gaze never wavering from mine. I dropped to my knees, against every ounce of sense I'd ever been taught, every tale, every caution, and inched closer to the cub. It looked lifeless, tiny, barely bigger than a cocker spaniel, ribs jutting out, blood dried around one ear. Then, a flicker, faint but real, the chest shifted. I glanced at the mother bear. She was tracking my every move. Like a fool, I muttered, "I'll try, okay? I'll try." She didn't stir. I scooped the cub into my flannel, heart racing, and backed into the house. She didn't twitch, just sat there, still as stone, like she understood something I couldn't grasp. Inside, I dumped the cub on the couch, snatched towels, a heating pad, bottled water, anything I could grab. He was cold, floppy, but not lost yet. I peeked out the window. She hadn't budged. Standing there in my living room, cradling a half-dead bear cub, I thought, what in the hell am I supposed to do now? That's when it hit me. This wasn't some random wildlife oddity, not nature playing sweet or sorrowful. This was something different, something that had singled me out, for better or worse, and I wasn't prepared. But she was. She stayed all day on my porch, watching, waiting. And that cub, he wasn't finished yet. The cub sprawled on my couch like a heap of drenched rags, lifeless, chilled, barely hanging on. I sank to my knees and pressed 2 fingers lightly against his fragile ribs. Nothing. I held my breath, leaned in close enough to catch his scent, earthy, wet fur laced with blood. Then, just faintly, I felt it, the tiniest rise and fall, a breath, feeble but there. "You're alive," I whispered. "God damn it, you're alive." I bundled him tighter in the flannel and dashed to the back room, dragging out an old space heater. I plugged it in, cranked it to full blast, tossed down blankets, towels, anything soft, and laid him in the center like a fallen fledgling in a nest. His breathing was shallow, barely stirring his chest. His back leg was rigid, one ear crusted with dried blood. This wasn't mere fatigue. Something had happened to him. Outside, I heard scratching. I glanced through the window. She was still there, sitting, watching, like some timeless monument. I grabbed my phone and dialed Tom, the nearest vet I knew, though he mostly handled livestock. "Yeah," he answered, voice thick with sleep. "Tom, it's me. It's a bear cub, hurt bad. I mean real bad." Silence. "You been drinking?" "No, damn it, I'm serious." The mother brought him to me, left him on my porch. "She's still here." A long pause. "What the hell did you just say?" "I don't have time to explain." "What do I do to keep him alive?" "Jesus." "Okay, warm him up, check for bleeding, don't feed him yet, just fluids, like honey water, dropper style. Keep him calm. I'll call Sarah. She used to do wildlife rehab." I hung up, raced to the kitchen, found an old jar of raw honey, mixed it with warm water, and grabbed a turkey baster. the nearest thing I had to a dropper. I pried the cub's mouth open gently. A few drops slid in, nothing more. Then a twitch, his tongue stirred. "That's it," I said. "Come on, stay with me." I sat beside him for an hour, maybe longer, talking, humming, cursing under my breath the whole time. The bear outside didn't shift once. I cracked the door open. She looked up, locked eyes with me, then dipped her head again. She was trusting me. That part still guts me. By noon, he moved his paw. Just a little, a sluggish stretch like he was feeling out the world. I laughed, actually laughed aloud, and tears splashed onto my knees before I even realized I was crying. "You're not dying today," I said. "Not on my watch." I had no clue what I was doing, way out of my depth, surrounded by towels and blood in this small, shattered body. But I knew one thing for certain. That cub wanted to live, and I wasn't about to let him slip away without a fight. By mid-afternoon, my living room resembled a madman's animal clinic. Blankets strewn across every surface, towels stacked high, the space heater buzzing at full tilt. The cub lay in front of it, swaddled like an infant, one paw poking out, bleeding again. I checked it. A tear, maybe a bite tom, swollen and red. That wasn't good. Infection could kill him quicker than the cold. I grabbed peroxide, the kind I used on my own cuts, dabbed some onto a rag, and pressed it to the wound. He flinched. Good. Pain meant he was still in the game. From outside came a low grunt. I looked out. She hadn't moved an inch, still perched in the same spot on the porch, her huge frame coiled like a statue, but her eyes followed everything. I cracked the door an inch. "He's still with us?" I said quietly. "Barely, but he's here." She didn't reply, didn't growl, just breathed. Back inside, I sank to the floor beside the cub, gave him more honey water. His tongue flicked, not much, but it was something. My phone buzzed. Tom again. "Sarah says you're nuts," he said, "but she's driving up with meds. She'll be there by nightfall." Thank God. He's bleeding from a leg, and I think he's feverish. Keep him warm. No sudden moves. Don't try solid food yet. And for the love of God, don't open that door wide. That mom won't stay calm forever. I knew he was right. It was a miracle she hadn't already ripped the walls apart looking for her baby, but she hadn't. She trusted me. That made me feel worse somehow. An hour ticked by, then another. The cub twitched more, adjusted his head, tried to roll. "Easy, bud," I whispered. "Not yet. Just rest." He made a noise then. Not a growl, not a whimper, something in between, like a busted toy winding back to life. I wiped his paw clean again. The blood was slowing, still red, still ugly, but not pouring. I could handle that. Outside, the bear paced for the first time. 2 steps left, 2 steps right. Then sat again, like her body couldn't settle on staying or charging. I knew that feeling. I lit the wood stove for extra heat. The room turned stifling fast, but I didn't care. He needed warmth more than I needed air. Night crept in slow. The shadows stretched, and the cub, he opened one eye, just one. I swear to God, it looked right into mine. Not wild, not tame, just there. "You're not alone, little guy," I whispered. "Not anymore." He blinked, then drifted off again. That was the first time I thought he might pull through. Not a sure thing, not a vow, but a maybe. And that maybe was more than I'd had all day. The next morning, I woke up on the floor, neck stiff, head throbbing. The cub was still breathing, barely, but something had shifted. His eye was open again, and this time it didn't fade away. It fixed on me. He moved, not much, just a weak shuffle of his front paw, like he was trying to scratch an itch, but it was the first purposeful motion I'd seen. My heart nearly burst. I grabbed my keys. "All right, buddy," I said, wrapping him gently in a blanket. "Time to get you some real help." I tucked him into a plastic bin lined with towels, set it on the passenger seat. The mom was still outside. She rose the instant I stepped out with the bin. "He's okay," I told her, keeping my voice soft. "I'll bring him back, I promise." I didn't expect her to get it, but maybe she did, She didn't growl, didn't move, just stared. I backed out the driveway slow, every nerve screaming. I didn't want to be the idiot on the news who swiped a bear cub and got mauled by its mom. The drive to Sarah's clinic took just under 40 minutes, but felt like days. I kept checking the cub. His breathing was shallow, his paw twitched now and then, but his eyes stayed half open. I pulled up fast, ran inside, and yelled, "Sarah? I've got something emergency." She rounded the corner in scrubs, coffee in hand, and nearly dropped it when she saw what I was carrying. "No way," she whispered. "Where the hell did you get that?" Long story. His mother brought him to me, dropped him off like a desperate delivery. She waved me to the back room. We rushed him onto a table. 2 vet techs joined us, eyes wide. "That's a wild cub," one said. "Like, seriously wild." "He's not aggressive," I replied. "He's half dead. Help him." Sarah started checking him. Vitals, the leg wound. "Jesus, this wasn't a fall," she muttered. "This is a bite deep. Upper jaw pressure, adult male. Another bear did this." "Yeah, likely a boar," she added. "Sometimes they kill cubs to bring the female back into heat." Brutal stuff. That slammed into me like a brick. So this wasn't just a sick cub. He'd been attacked, hunted, left for dead, and the mom must have fought off the bastard and turned to me as her last hope. "What are his chances?" I asked. Sarah didn't answer right away. "Slim. Real slim. But he's a fighter, and you got him here in time. We'll do what we can." She looked at me. "You trust me to try?" I nodded. She trusted me. "Now I'm trusting you." I stood by the glass, watching them work. Fluids, antibiotics. Sarah was a machine, precise, quick. The cub jerked once, then went still. Everyone froze. Then a breath, another, shaky but there. He wasn't done yet, and neither were we. The sun was sinking low when I rolled back into the driveway. The woods around my house had gone quiet, too quiet. I cut the engine and sat there a moment, hands gripping the wheel. The plastic bin with the cub was on the passenger seat, lined with a fresh towel. He was breathing, slow, steady, doped up with antibiotics and painkillers, but alive. I opened the door and stepped out, and there she was, like she'd never left. The second the gravel crunched under my boots, she stood, her whole body wound tight like a spring, nose high, breath loud and sharp. She'd heard the truck, maybe even followed it somehow. She knew. "Easy," I said, holding my palms out like a moron. "He's here." I brought him back. I walked around to the passenger side, gently lifted the bin out. Her head dipped slightly, but she didn't advance. "He's okay." "Well, not okay, but better." She grunted, deep in her chest. Not a threat, something else, like worry. I set the bin down slow in the middle of the driveway, stepped back, gave her room. She didn't move. She stared at the cub, then at me, back to him. I waited. Then she did the last thing I expected. She sat down, not 10 feet from her baby, and folded her massive frame to the ground like she was bedding down for the night. I didn't breathe for a solid minute. "Why aren't you taking him?" I whispered. "What are you waiting for?" No answer, of course, just the wind through the trees and the occasional call of an early owl. The cub stirred, let out a weak huff. Her ears perked. She leaned forward a few inches, then stopped, watching, always watching. I sat on the porch steps, both of us now locked in some kind of silent standoff. Minutes passed, then an hour. The light faded to dusk. She never moved. I brought out a flashlight, clicked it on, checked the cub. He was still breathing, still warm. I tucked the towel tighter around him. She shifted her weight, but didn't come closer. "You're not taking him tonight, are you?" I asked. "You want me to keep watching him, to do your job?" It sounded absurd even as I said it, but maybe I wasn't wrong. She laid her head on her paws, and that's where she stayed through the whole night, just beyond the porch light's reach, still waiting, trusting a stranger to keep her baby alive until she could take him back. And I knew then she wasn't going anywhere. By the third day, the cub was moving more, not gracefully. He wobbled like a plastered raccoon. But he was up. He ate from a bowl. Eyedropper mush, Sarah suggested. Goat milk, soaked dog kibble, mashed berries. Messy as hell, but he ate. Outside, she was still there. Every morning, I'd open the door, and there she'd be, sometimes curled by the steps, sometimes pacing the tree line, but always near, always watching. I kept my distance, left food and water for her a little ways off. Not that she ever touched it. She didn't want my help, just him. On the 5th day, my first visitor showed up. Pete, my nearest neighbor, rolled up in his mud-splattered pickup, stepped out looking pale. "You seen the bear?" he asked, straight to it. "Yeah," I said. "She's mine." He blinked. "What the hell does that mean?" I explained. Well, some of it. Told him she'd dropped off an injured cub that I was trying to help. His face cycled from baffled to horrified to furious in under 10 seconds. "You've got a bear camped out by your house and didn't call anyone?" "She hasn't hurt anybody. She just wants her kid to live. This ain't Disney, man. People got kids. What if she snaps? She hasn't left my property once." He stormed off, pissed. I knew that look. He'd call someone. 2 hours later, the sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Deputy Carter stepped out, thumb hooked on her belt. "You harboring wildlife now, Jake?" "Not exactly." I told her everything. She listened, arms crossed, face unreadable. When I finished, she said, "You're lucky no one's hurt, but this is a problem." She trusts me. That bear came to me because she had no one else. She's still a wild animal. If this goes south, it'll fall on you. I nodded. "Then let it fall." She stared at me a long time, then sighed. "I'll hold off the state for a bit, but you need an end to this quick." I thanked her as she drove off. I looked over at the bear. She was lying down, massive head on her paws, eyes glued to the window. Inside, the cub batted a tennis ball across the floor, clumsy but determined. His paw still bore a scar, but the swelling was gone. He was getting stronger, but something else was shifting too. He didn't bolt when I walked in, didn't flinch when I touched him. He watched me like he watched the woods outside. Curious, wary, but calm. And it hit me. He wasn't just her cub anymore. He was caught between two worlds now, half wild, half mine, and that was a line we couldn't straddle forever. The knock came early, too early for good news. I opened the door to find Deputy Carter again, arms folded, jaw tight. "They're sending a wildlife unit tomorrow morning, state level," she said. "They'll tranquilize her and relocate if you don't do something first." My stomach dropped like I'd been punched. "You said you'd hold them off." "I did. Now I'm out of time." I looked past her. The bear was still curled under the pines, not pacing anymore, just waiting as always. Morales added, softer, "You can end this your way, or let them do it theirs." After she left, I sat on the floor next to the cub. He was chewing the toe of one of my boots. Happy, safe, oblivious. "All right, kid," I muttered. "Time for you to go home, whether you like it or not." I packed him into the bin again. Towel, blanket, a bottle of that berry mush he liked. He whined just once. I drove slow through back trails, over muddy hills, to a spot I knew. Deep woods where the forest gets so dense it swallows sound. I got out, opened the bin. He didn't move at first, just blinked at the sudden shift, then looked at me like, "What's the game this time?" A crunch of branches. She was there, not far, maybe 30 feet, watching from the shadows, her breath misting in the cool air. I stepped back. "He's yours." She didn't move. The cub climbed out of the bin, awkward and slow. He stood on all fours, sniffed the ground, then looked up. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Recognition, relief, maybe fear. And then he cried out. A small sound. Nothing like a roar, more like a gasp. She moved. She approached slow, head low, body tense. I held my breath, ready to bolt, but she didn't charge. She stopped beside him, nose pressed to his fur, sniffed him all over. He leaned into her. My eyes burned. I turned to go, but then something odd happened. She looked at me, not like an animal, not like a threat, like a parent. She turned her head to the cub, nudged him gently toward me, then back again. He hesitated. She let out a low sound, soft, almost encouraging, and he walked back to me. I knelt down. He pressed his head against my chest. I heard myself whisper, "What the hell are we doing here?" She didn't come closer, didn't push him again. Instead, she turned slow, melted into the trees without a sound, and he didn't follow. That was when I realized she'd made the choice I couldn't. She gave him back. It's been 2 months since that day in the forest, since she walked away. I waited, stood there like a fool for a long time, holding the cub while the wind creaked through the trees, but she never returned. Not that day, not the next, not once. I kept expecting signs, tracks outside the house, claw toms on trees, a fresh kill left nearby. Nothing. She vanished. But the cub, he stayed. I gave him room, built a little pen outside, half fenced with logs and climbing stuff. He hated it, busted out in a week. So now he just lingers, comes and goes, sleeps under the porch sometimes, roams during the day, comes running when he hears the rattle of the dog food bin. He's not a pet. God knows he's not tame, but he's not wild either. He lives in that in-between space. Sometimes I catch him staring at the tree line for hours, nose twitching, ears perked, waiting for her. I do the same. Every night, I sit on the porch with a flashlight and a mug of lousy coffee, listening, hoping, wondering. Sometimes I hear rustling in the dark, low footsteps, a breath, but nothing steps into view, nothing reveals itself. I've stopped calling it paranoia. Now it's just routine. One night, about 3 weeks back, I found a dead rabbit near the edge of the woods. Clean kill, untouched, no blood trail, no scavenger toms. A gift. That same night, the cub wouldn't stop pacing, crying, almost whimpering, in a way he hadn't since the first week. She'd been there, I know it, checking in, watching, letting him stay, but not letting him forget. And maybe that's the point. He's part of both worlds now. He sleeps by the woodpile, but chases squirrels like he's got something to prove. He play fights with the neighbor's dog, then climbs a tree like a shadow. He doesn't belong anywhere, but somehow he fits here. And me. I still leave the porch light on, still stack berries by the forest's edge, still watch the shadows. Not because I expect her to come back, but because she already left what mattered. This messy, stubborn, wide-eyed piece of her. He's enough. But I'll be honest, every time the wind shifts, every time the night goes too still, every time he lifts his head and stares into the dark like he knows something I don't, I get this twist in my gut. Not fear, not hope, just the sense that the story's not done. Not yet.